The gunshots came without warning. Jamal's hands frantically signed, "I can't hear you," as blood bloomed across his chest. Across town, Dr. Amara Wright's phone vibrated. The message her son had been shot. Nobody knew she commanded the most secretive CIA division in America. Before we dive into this shocking story of injustice and a mother's fight for her son, let me know where you're watching from. In the comments below, hit that like button and subscribe if you want to see how this powerful mother brings an entire corrupt system to its knees. Can a single woman with government training really take down a network of racist cops? Let's find out. 16-year-old Jamal Wright loved three things above all else: basketball, his mother, and expressing himself through American Sign Language. Born deaf, he navigated the world through visual cues, facial expressions, and the intricate movements of his skilled hands. In Oak Ridge, Missouri, a town of 30,000 people with deeply entrenched racial divisions, being both black and deaf meant Jamal faced twice the barriers of his peers. His mother, Dr. Amara Wright, had chosen Oak Ridge for its specialized school programs for deaf students, but the reality fell far short of the brochures. The pristine hallways of Oak Ridge High School might have looked welcoming, but beneath the surface, discrimination festered like an open wound. Mr. Garner, the American history teacher, regularly forgot to face Jamal when speaking, making lip reading impossible. The school principal, Dr. Meredith Sanders, consistently denied requests for additional interpreters, citing budget constraints while approving funds for new football uniforms. Jamal's determination never wavered despite these challenges. Every afternoon, he practiced basketball alone at the community court, perfecting his three-point shot through feel and rhythm rather than sound. Basketball became his universal language, the place where his deafness didn't matter. On the court, he communicated through skill and strategy, earning reluctant respect even from those who ignored him in school hallways. Dr. Amara Wright maintained a precarious balance between two worlds. To Oak Ridge residents, she worked as a behavioral psychologist at a research institute in nearby Columbia. Her frequent business trips raised no suspicions in a town where people minded their own business. In reality, Amara directed the CIA's most classified intelligence division, specializing in domestic threat assessment and counterterrorism operations. Only 3 people in the entire government knew her true position, and she intended to keep it that way. Protecting Jamal meant keeping her worlds entirely separate. Their modest 2-bedroom house on Maple Street presented the perfect cover, a single mother providing for her son, nothing more. Jamal had one true friend in Oak Ridge, Marcus Johnson, a hearing student who had taken it upon himself to learn sign language after they were paired for a science project in 7th grade. Marcus served as Jamal's interpreter when no officials were available, bridging the communication gap that so many refused to acknowledge. Through Marcus, Jamal navigated social situations that would otherwise exclude him entirely. The first warning sign appeared 3 weeks before the shooting. Jamal had stopped at Wheeler's convenience store for a sports drink after basketball practice. Officer Brian Holloway, a 5-year veteran of the Oak Ridge Police Department with a reputation for aggressive policing, spotted Jamal browsing the refrigerated section. "Hey, you empty your pockets," Holloway demanded, approaching with his hand resting on his holster. Jamal, unaware of the officer's commands, continued examining the drink options. Holloway grabbed Jamal's shoulder, roughly spinning him around. The shock on Jamal's face quickly gave way to understanding as he recognized the uniform. He immediately began signing, pointing to his ears and shaking his head. "I don't care what gang signs you're throwing," Holloway snarled, pushing Jamal against the refrigerator door. "Empty your pockets!" The store owner, Mr. Wheeler, intervened, explaining Jamal's deafness. Holloway released his grip, but left with a warning. "Keep your hands where people can see them. Not everyone's going to take the time to figure out your situation." That Thursday afternoon, as storm clouds gathered over Oak Ridge, Jamal walked home from basketball practice, his mind occupied with strategies for the upcoming tournament. The rain had held off, but the air felt heavy with pending precipitation. 2 patrol cars pulled alongside him near the corner of Elm and Washington. Officers Holloway and Randall stepped out, approaching with purpose. Jamal noticed them and stopped, setting his basketball down slowly. Holloway's mouth moved rapidly, but from this angle Jamal couldn't read his lips. He reached for his phone to type a message explaining his deafness. "He's reaching," Randall shouted, drawing his weapon. Jamal, seeing the gun, immediately raised his hands and began signing frantically. "I'm deaf. I can't hear you. Please?" Holloway interpreted the rapid hand movements as threatening gestures. "Drop it now!" He screamed as Jamal continued signing, trying desperately to communicate. 3 shots rang out in rapid succession. Jamal looked down in disbelief as crimson stains spread across his white basketball jersey. He collapsed to the sidewalk, hands still moving weakly, trying to say he didn't understand what was happening. As he fell, his basketball rolled into the street, coming to rest in a puddle from the previous night's rain. Officer Randall approached cautiously, kicking away Jamal's phone as if it were a weapon. "What did he pull?" he asked, scanning the ground. Holloway holstered his weapon, face pale, as realization dawned. "Nothing. There's nothing." Across the street, neighbor Tabitha Jenkins had captured the entire incident on her phone. Instead of helping the bleeding teenager, the officers huddled by their patrol car, radioing dispatch. "Suspect down at Elm and Washington. Shots fired. Officer involved." Not once did they approach Jamal to administer first aid as he lay bleeding on the concrete, his hands finally still. Dr. Amara Wright sat in a secured underground facility 700 miles away, directing a critical operation tracking terrorist cells in Yemen. 3 screens displayed satellite imagery, agent positions, and real-time intelligence feeds. As the Deputy Director of Special Activities Division's most classified unit, Amara had earned her position through 20 years of exceptional service, analytical brilliance, and unflinching determination. The secure phone in her pocket vibrated, displaying a local Oak Ridge number. Calls to this line came only in absolute emergencies, a direct channel to Jamal. "Excuse me," she said to her team, stepping into an adjacent secure room. "This is Wright." The voice on the other end belonged to Mrs. Jenkins, their neighbor. "Dr. Wright, it's Tabitha from across the street. Jamal's been shot by police on Elm Street. They're taking him to Memorial Hospital. I'm following the ambulance now." The world stopped. Amara's training kicked in immediately, compartmentalizing emotion from action. "I'm on my way. Was he conscious?" "Barely. There was so much blood. They just shot him, Dr. Wright. He wasn't doing anything wrong. I recorded it all." "Send me the video now. Don't share it with anyone else. I'll be there as soon as possible." Amara ended the call and immediately activated her emergency protocols. Throughout her career, Amara had navigated the treacherous waters of institutional racism within intelligence agencies. As one of few black women to reach her level in the CIA, she'd endured countless slights, microaggressions, and outright discrimination. Early in her career, a supervisor had directly told her, "People like you don't make it past field agent." She'd proven him wrong, then systematically dismantled his career when she discovered his involvement in an illegal domestic surveillance program. The experience taught her valuable lessons about patience documentation and strategic revenge. Now those skills would serve a different purpose. Amara contacted her most trusted team member, James Chen. Immediate personal emergency, invoking Protocol Black. Protocol Black was the agency's highest personal emergency designation, allowing Amara to utilize certain resources without extensive oversight. Within 15 minutes, she boarded a CIA helicopter bound for the nearest airfield. During the flight, she watched Mrs. Jenkins' video 5 times, analyzing every detail with clinical precision. The footage showed clearly that Jamal had been signing, not threatening. The officers had made no attempt to communicate, moving straight to deadly force. By the time Amara's agency jet touched down at Columbia Regional Airport 3 hours later, she had already assembled a dossier on Officers Holloway and Randall. Holloway had 7 excessive force complaints in 5 years, all against minorities, all dismissed. Randall was newer, but had transferred from a department under federal investigation for civil rights violations. A waiting car whisked her to Memorial Hospital, where she found armed officers stationed outside the intensive care unit. "Ma'am, you can't go in there," said a uniformed officer she didn't recognize. Amara fixed him with a stare that had made hardened terrorists confess. "That's my son. Move." Something in her voice made him step aside. Jamal lay unconscious, tubes and wires connecting him to machines monitoring his vital signs. 3 bullets had torn through his body, one grazing his shoulder, one lodged near his lung, and one dangerously close to his spine. The attending physician, Dr. Patterson, detailed his condition in hushed tones. "We've stabilized him for now, but he'll need additional surgery once his condition improves. The next 24 hours are critical." Outside Jamal's room, Police Chief Thomas Larson waited with practiced sympathy. "Dr. Wright, I can't express how deeply sorry we are for this unfortunate incident. Rest assured, we're conducting a thorough investigation." Amara noted his careful word choice: incident, not shooting, and the absence of any acknowledgement of wrongdoing. "I want to see the officer's body camera footage," she said. Larson's expression flickered momentarily. "Unfortunately, there appears to have been a technical malfunction with both devices. We're looking into it." "And the officer's current status?" "Administrative leave as per department policy." Amara recognized the signs of a cover-up forming. As Larson left, she received a text from her CIA team. Preliminary background checks revealed connections between Chief Larson and several white nationalist forums operating under thin digital disguises. While maintaining her outward appearance of a concerned mother, Amara began assembling the infrastructure for what would become the most important operation of her career. She contacted 3 trusted CIA colleagues who owed her their lives from a mission in Kyrgyzstan 5 years earlier. Within hours, they'd established a secure communications network and surveillance of key Oak Ridge officials. That night, as Jamal fought for his life, hospital security cameras captured footage of someone in scrubs entering his room during shift change, someone who didn't belong to the hospital staff. The following morning, Jamal's condition mysteriously deteriorated, requiring emergency intervention. Analysis of his blood work showed traces of a compound not prescribed by his doctors. Someone had tried to ensure Jamal wouldn't wake up to tell his side of the story. They didn't know who they were dealing with. Amara Wright hadn't become the CIA's most effective covert operations director by accident. She'd specialized in dismantling entrenched criminal networks across 3 continents. Now she would apply those same skills to save her son and expose the corruption that had nearly killed him. As dawn broke over Oak Ridge, Amara made a silent promise to her unconscious son. The system that had failed him was about to meet its match. The sterile, fluorescent lights of Memorial Hospital cast harsh shadows across Amara's face as she confronted the hospital administrator. "My son's room was entered by unauthorized personnel last night, and his condition suddenly deteriorated. I want to see the security footage immediately." Administrator Patricia Morgan shuffled papers nervously. "Dr. Wright, I assure you we maintain the highest security standards. Perhaps it was a routine check by one of our staff members." Amara leaned forward, her voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. "Someone tried to kill my son last night. Either you provide those tapes voluntarily, or I'll return with a federal warrant and a team that will tear this place apart." The footage arrived in Amara's email 30 minutes later. Meanwhile, across town at the Oak Ridge Police Department, Chief Thomas Larson held an emergency meeting with his command staff. "This situation needs to disappear," he told the assembled officers. "The official report will state that Wright made threatening movements and appeared to reach for a weapon. Officers Holloway and Randall, responded according to their training. Captain Michael Reynolds, a 20-year veteran, shifted uncomfortably. "Sir, the neighbor's video clearly shows the kid was using sign language. He's deaf." Larson slammed his fist on the table. "That video is unofficial and unverified. Our body cam footage would have shown the complete context, but unfortunately both devices malfunctioned." Such a shame. The sarcasm in his voice made it clear this malfunction was deliberate. Outside the hospital, local news vans had already gathered. Reporter Shannon Williams from Channel 8 delivered her report. 16-year-old Jamal Wright remains in critical condition after being shot by Oak Ridge police yesterday. Department spokesperson Lisa Martinez states that Wright matched the description of a robbery suspect and made threatening gestures toward officers before they opened fire. However, a video circulating on social media appears to contradict this account, showing Wright using sign language moments before the shooting. The carefully crafted narrative began unraveling as Jamal's classmates organized a protest outside police headquarters. Signs reading, "Hands up, don't shoot," took on additional poignancy given Jamal's reliance on his hands to communicate. Social media exploded with the hashtag #JusticeForJamal as Mrs. Jenkins' video spread, despite efforts to suppress it. Amara watched these developments while simultaneously directing her CIA team's investigation. Analyst James Chen had discovered concerning connections. Chief Larson District Attorney William Preston and Mayor Richards all belong to the same hunting club that meets at a remote cabin outside town limits. Financial records show large cash deposits to Larson's account following each meeting. While maintaining her cover as a concerned mother, Amara met with civil rights attorney Keisha Johnson in the hospital cafeteria. "The department has already circled the wagons," Johnson explained. "They're claiming the body cam footage is corrupted, and they've seized surveillance video from nearby businesses. Classic cover-up playbook." "What about federal involvement?" Amara asked, carefully gauging Johnson's connections. "I've filed requests, but the U.S. attorney for this district is golfing buddies with the mayor. Don't expect help from that direction." On the 5th day after the shooting, Jamal finally regained consciousness. Amara was by his side as his eyes fluttered open immediately, signing, "You're safe. I'm here." Tears streamed down his face as he weakly signed back, "They didn't let me explain. I tried to tell them I couldn't hear." A nurse entered, surprised to find Jamal awake. "I need to notify the doctor, Key," she said, reaching for the call button. Amara noted her name badge, Linda Simmons, and the fact that she wasn't Jamal's regular nurse. Later that day, Dr. Patterson reviewed Jamal's chart with a frown. "Someone ordered a sedative increase last night that I didn't authorize. Had it been administered at the listed dosage, it could have caused respiratory depression." That evening, Amara returned to her car and found a note tucked under the windshield wiper, "Drop it or bury him." Security cameras in the parking garage had been conveniently turned away from her vehicle. The implied threat only strengthened her resolve. Did the police really think they could intimidate a woman who had stared down death in war zones across the globe? Would they continue their campaign of intimidation if they knew who they were truly dealing with? Comment number 1. If you think Amara should reveal her CIA identity to scare off these corrupt cops, or number 2, if you believe she should continue working undercover to gather more evidence. Like and subscribe to see how this mother takes on an entire corrupt system. How far would these officers go to cover up their crimes? And what dark secrets was the Oak Ridge Police Department hiding behind their blue wall of silence? The first attempt on Amara's life came disguised as an accident. Driving back from meeting with Attorney Johnson, her car suddenly lost brake pressure on Oak Ridge's steepest hill. Only her CIA defensive driving training prevented a fatal crash as she expertly navigated the vehicle into a controlled collision with a roadside ditch. The responding officer seemed disappointed to find her alive, taking minimal notes and forgetting to call for a tow truck. Examination of the vehicle later revealed precisely cut brake lines, not the work of amateurs. The local news painted a very different picture of Jamal than the honor student and basketball player his classmates knew. Channel 8's evening broadcast featured an exclusive report on Jamal's supposed disciplinary problems. Sources within Oak Ridge High School reveal that Wright had been involved in several altercations with staff and students, reported anchor Tom Fletcher. School records allegedly show multiple suspensions for aggressive behavior. Principal Sanders, who had previously denied Jamal's requests for additional interpreters, now appeared on camera with practiced concern. Jamal Wright faced many challenges, and perhaps we could have provided more support. Our thoughts and prayers are with him during this difficult time. The calculated use of past tense wasn't lost on Amara. The next day, Officer Randall held a press conference, his voice breaking with manufactured emotion as he described fearing for his life when Jamal made rapid, threatening hand movements. His partner, Officer Holloway, stood stoically beside him, eyes hidden behind mirrored sunglasses despite the indoor setting. The department's public relations officer announced that a search of Jamal's school locker had uncovered marijuana, suggesting the teen may have been under the influence during the confrontation. The fact that Jamal's locker had remained untouched for 5 days after the shooting raised obvious questions about evidence tampering that no one in the media bothered to ask. That evening, Amara returned home to find her front door slightly ajar. Drawing the concealed handgun she always carried, she cleared the house room by room, finding it ransacked. The intruders had been thorough, tearing apart furniture, emptying drawers, and smashing picture frames. Most concerning was the missing laptop from her home office, which contained family photos and personal documents. The violation of her private space confirmed what Amara already suspected. This went far beyond 2 officers covering up a mistake. A pattern was emerging of systematic intimidation and evidence manipulation. The next target was Marcus Johnson Jamal's best friend and interpreter. 2 plainclothes detectives pulled him from class for questioning, refusing to allow his parents to be present despite his status as a minor. For 3 hours they alternated between threats and false promises, attempting to coerce him into stating that Jamal had been involved in drug dealing and had threatened officers in the past. "We know you want to be loyal to your friend," Detective Sampson said, "but lying to protect him will only hurt your future. College applications, scholarships, all that can disappear with a criminal record." Marcus held firm, repeatedly requesting his parents or an attorney until they finally released him. The community itself began to fracture along racial lines as tensions escalated. A Back the Blue rally organized by retired officers drew hundreds of supporters to the town square, many carrying signs reading, "Support our police," and "Facts, not fiction." Counter-protesters gathered across the street with "Justice for Jamali" signs, leading to heated verbal confrontations that required state police intervention to prevent violence. At Memorial Hospital, Jamal's condition suddenly deteriorated again. Dr. Patterson ordered comprehensive toxicology screening, discovering traces of a paralytic agent in his system that shouldn't have been there. "This wasn't an accident or medical error," he told Amara privately. "Someone deliberately introduced this compound into his IV line." Amara made an immediate decision. Using her CIA connections, she arranged for an unmarked medical transport helicopter and a team of trusted medical professionals. Within hours, Jamal was airlifted to a secure private medical facility outside CIA jurisdiction, listed in records only as Patient 347 undergoing specialized treatment. His official hospital bed remained occupied by a CIA operative posing as Jamal, maintaining the illusion that he remained at Memorial while actually being treated at a secure location with round-the-clock protection. Through encrypted channels, Amara's team delivered concerning intelligence the corruption extended far beyond Oak Ridge. Chief Larson maintained connections with police chiefs in 7 surrounding counties, all sharing similar patterns of racial profiling and excessive force complaints that mysteriously disappeared. Financial analysis revealed a network of payments flowing through shell companies, ultimately connected to private prison corporations that profited from high incarceration rates among minorities. Most disturbing was evidence suggesting this wasn't merely opportunistic corruption, but rather a deliberate strategy. Intercepted communications between Chief Larson and Mayor Richards referred to population management and demographic stabilization, coded language for systematic harassment designed to drive minority residents from Oak Ridge. Anonymous threats began targeting anyone publicly supporting Jamal. Marcus's family awoke to find their car windows smashed. Attorney Johnson's office received daily calls describing in graphic detail what would happen if she continued representing the wrong people. Even Mrs. Jenkins, whose video had first exposed the truth, reported being followed by unmarked police vehicles. Amara's CIA superior, Deputy Director Collins, called her directly on a secure line. "Right, I'm receiving questions about resource allocation to a domestic situation. You know the restrictions on CIA operations within U.S. borders." "This is personal, sir. My son was shot. And that's a tragedy, but it's a local law enforcement matter. We can arrange compassionate leave, but agency resources cannot be deployed for personal vendettas. Stand down, Amara. That's an order." Amara stared at the phone for a long moment after disconnecting. 20 years of exemplary service, of sacrificing everything for her country, and now she faced a choice between her career and justice for her son. In truth, it wasn't a choice at all. If the system wouldn't deliver justice, she would build a new system. The abandoned mill on Oak Ridge's outskirts had been condemned for 15 years, its crumbling brick exterior and boarded windows ensuring privacy from curious eyes. Inside, however, the central office space had been transformed into a high-tech command center that would make CIA headquarters envious. 3 of Amara's most trusted colleagues had arrived, each taking career-ending risks to help her: James Chen, the agency's foremost digital intelligence expert; Maria Vasquez, psychological operations specialist; and Darren Tucker, former Special Forces operator turned extraction expert. "The agency's disavowal gives us certain advantages," Amara explained, standing before digital displays showing surveillance of key Oak Ridge locations. "No oversight means no operational restrictions. We're going completely off-book." Chen gestured to the array of equipment surrounding them. "Everything here is untraceable. Surveillance drones, communications intercepts, digital penetration tools. We've got capabilities that would make the NSA jealous. And technically, we're all on vacation," Vasquez added with a grim smile. "Very dedicated tourists." Amara outlined her strategy. "This isn't just about the officers who shot Jamal. We're looking at systematic corruption across multiple institutions: police, judiciary, local government, even medical. We need comprehensive intelligence before we move." Their first breakthrough came from an unexpected ally. FBI agent Terrence Phillips, who specialized in police corruption cases, reached out through secure channels. "I've been building a case on Oak Ridge PD for 18 months, he explained during their clandestine meeting in a neighboring county. "Civil rights violations, evidence tampering, excessive force. The works. But every time I get close to filing charges, my investigations get shut down from above." Phillips provided internal FBI documents revealing a disturbing pattern. Oak Ridge represented the highest per capita rate of use-of-force incidents against minorities in the state, yet had faced zero federal consequences. Court records showed that judges routinely dismissed complaints against officers despite compelling evidence. Most concerning was the discovery that Chief Larson had received specialized training from a private security firm linked to white nationalist groups focusing on urban population control techniques. Meanwhile, Jamal's condition stabilized at the secure medical facility. Through sign language, he provided detailed testimony about the shooting and previous encounters with Officer Holloway. "He recognized me," Jamal signed to Amara. "From the store, he called me Gang Signs Boy right before he shot me." This crucial detail confirmed the shooting wasn't just a tragic misunderstanding, but potentially premeditated. While Amara built her case, she recognized the need for community intelligence networks. Marcus, despite the risks, volunteered to coordinate information gathering among Jamal's friends and supporters. Amara provided secure communication devices and basic counterintelligence training to key community members, creating a grassroots surveillance network that reported police movements and identified plainclothes officers conducting intimidation operations. These civilian observers became the operation's eyes and ears, documenting license plates, photographing officers, harassing protesters, and creating an evidence database that grew by the hour. The technological assault on Oak Ridge's corrupt infrastructure proceeded on multiple fronts. Chen deployed advanced surveillance drones disguised as birds to monitor police headquarters, capturing officers, destroying evidence, and falsifying reports. Wireless intercepts revealed text messages between officers discussing the fabrication of witness statements. The team identified a potential crack in the blue wall of silence: Officer Elena Rodriguez, a recent transfer who had expressed private concerns about department practices. Through careful approach and vetting, Rodriguez became their inside source, secretly copying internal documents and recording conversations that exposed the department's systematic cover-up efforts. "They're panicking," Rodriguez reported during a secure meeting. "Holloway is falling apart, drinking heavily and talking about coming clean. Larson has assigned officers to watch him around the clock. Most officers involved appeared to be following orders, rather than acting out of personal malice, creating exploitation opportunities." Psychological pressure began taking its toll on key perpetrators. Vasquez crafted personalized psychological operations for each target. Chief Larson received anonymous envelopes containing photos of himself at locations he thought private, along with transcripts of his conversations. D.A. Preston discovered that someone had accessed his private email account when printouts of his racist communications appeared on his car windshield. The psychological strain manifested visibly during press conferences, with Larson sweating profusely and Preston developing a nervous tic. Perhaps most significantly, Officer Holloway showed signs of a psychological breakdown. Bar patrons reported overhearing him mumbling about just following orders, and the kid was just signing. His service weapon was temporarily confiscated after a domestic disturbance call to his residence revealed concerning statements about suicide. Expanding their investigation, Amara's team discovered connections between local officials and state-level politicians. Governor Wilson had received substantial campaign contributions from private prison corporations that directly benefited from Oak Ridge's aggressive policing. State police commanders had helped suppress previous investigations into civil rights violations. The corruption network extended far beyond what anyone had initially suspected. As evidence mounted, Amara made contact with investigative journalist Sophia Chen from the Washington Post, known for her fearless reporting on police misconduct nationwide. "I can provide documented evidence of systematic civil rights violations, attempted murder of a witness, and corruption reaching state level," Amara told her during their secure meeting. "But I need guarantees about protecting sources and timing the release for maximum impact." Chen agreed, recognizing the story's national significance. "This goes beyond one shooting. It's about exposing a template for institutional racism that could be replicated elsewhere." With all pieces finally in place, Amara gathered her team for operational planning. "We'll execute simultaneously on multiple fronts: legal, media, law enforcement, and public pressure. No single point of failure, no possibility of containment." The evidence they'd assembled painted a damning picture. Oak Ridge wasn't just protecting two officers who made a mistake. It was defending a systematically racist power structure that treated excessive force against minorities as policy rather than violation. As Jamal continued his recovery, gaining strength daily, Amara prepared to launch a counteroffensive that would shake Oak Ridge to its foundations and potentially change policing nationwide. The corrupt system had chosen the wrong mother to threaten, the wrong son to shoot, the wrong family to intimidate. And they were about to learn exactly how costly that mistake would be. Dawn broke over Oak Ridge with a heavy fog that seemed appropriate for what would follow. At precisely 6:15 in the morning, 3 coordinated teams executed simultaneous operations that would shatter the city's corrupt foundation. Team Alpha, led by Darren Tucker, targeted Chief Larson's private residence based on intelligence that he kept the missing body cam footage in a personal safe. Using CIA infiltration techniques, they bypassed the alarm system during his morning jog, located the hidden wall safe behind a hunting trophy, and extracted both the original memory cards and Larson's personal files documenting departmental cover-ups dating back 7 years. Team Beta, with Agent Phillips providing FBI authentication, executed legitimate search warrants on the department's Internal Affairs Office, securing unaltered complaint files before they could be destroyed. Team Gamma simultaneously raided D.A. Preston's weekend cabin, recovering hard drives containing communications with officers about fabricating evidence and suppressing civil rights cases. By 8:30 that morning, all teams had extracted without detection the evidence secured in multiple locations to prevent any single point of failure. At 9 o'clock, the Washington Post published Sophia Chen's explosive front-page investigation, Systematic Racism and Cover-Ups, The Real Story of Policing in Oak Ridge. The article detailed not just Jamal's shooting, but years of documented abuses, complete with financial records showing payments to officers who maintained demographic targets by driving minorities from certain neighborhoods. National media outlets immediately picked up the story, flooding Oak Ridge with reporters demanding comments from suddenly unavailable officials. Officer Holloway, already struggling with guilt and alcohol abuse, saw the headlines and made a momentous decision. He contacted Attorney Johnson, expressing his desire to come clean about the shooting and the subsequent cover-up. "I can't live with it anymore," he told her, voice shaking. "The kid was just using sign language. We knew it afterward, but Larson said we had to stick to the story or we'd all go down." Johnson arranged for him to provide sworn testimony the following morning at the federal courthouse in Columbia, away from Oak Ridge's jurisdiction. She notified Amara immediately. This could break the whole case wide open. A confession from one of the shooting officers would be irrefutable. That night, Officer Holloway was found dead in his apartment from an apparent self-inflicted gunshot wound. The department immediately ruled it suicide, citing the note found beside him expressing remorse over recent events. But forensic analysis later revealed inconsistencies, gunshot residue patterns inconsistent with self-infliction, defensive wounds on his hands, and toxicology showing sedatives in his system. Most tellingly, security camera footage showed 2 fellow officers entering his building 2 hours before his body was discovered. The message was clear: anyone breaking ranks would be silenced. Mayor Richards called an emergency press conference to denounce the Washington Post story as fake news based on illegally obtained documents. Standing before a wall of uniformed officers, he declared, "This coordinated attack on our fine police department is nothing more than an attempt to undermine public safety by those with a political agenda." Officer Holloway's tragic suicide shows the real human cost of these baseless accusations. What Richards couldn't know was that Amara's team had compromised the video feed to every major network carrying his speech. As he denied the allegations, the screen suddenly split, showing the unedited body cam footage of Jamal's shooting. Viewers nationwide watched in horror as the truth unfolded, Jamal clearly signing "I'm deaf" and "I can't hear you." The officer's immediate aggression and most damning Officer Randall's statement after the shooting, "Larson's gonna lose it if we shot another one without cause." The hack lasted only 90 seconds before technicians cut the feed, but the damage was done. Cell phone videos of the broadcast went viral instantly. Protesters filled Oak Ridge's streets by the thousands, many coming from surrounding communities. The state police were called in to maintain order. But Commander Jackson's close ties to Chief Larson raised immediate concerns about their neutrality. Those concerns proved warranted when state troopers used excessive force against peaceful protesters, deploying tear gas and rubber bullets without provocation. What law enforcement didn't realize was that many protesters carried specially designed recording devices provided by Amara's team, documenting every civil rights violation in high-definition video that streamed directly to secure servers. With public attention focused on the protests, Amara executed the next phase of her plan. Using intelligence from Officer Rodriguez, her team identified the location where several officers were holding a strategy meeting. The basement of St. Michael's Church, ironically a historical site in the civil rights movement. Tucker led a small team to place advanced surveillance devices that captured the officers discussing plans to plant evidence in Jamal's hospital room and intimidate potential witnesses. As these recordings were anonymously delivered to federal authorities, the tide began turning. Governor Wilson, sensing political disaster, announced the appointment of an independent special prosecutor to investigate the Oak Ridge Police Department. Publicly, he expressed grave concerns about the disturbing footage, while privately ordering his staff to distance him from Chief Larson and the mayor. But the system still had teeth. An armed tactical team raided the safe house where Amara and her core team had established operations. Security measures gave them 3 minutes warning, just enough time to activate emergency protocols, wipe critical systems, and escape through a pre-established underground route. The raid, executed without warrants or probable cause, demonstrated how desperate authorities had become. They're using police powers to conduct illegal operations now, Tucker observed as they regrouped at their secondary location. That crosses the line into genuine criminal conspiracy. And the most shocking development came from Agent Phillips, who had been suddenly reassigned to a field office in Alaska. Before departing, he passed critical intelligence the state police commander had received direct orders from someone in the federal government to contain the situation by any means necessary. This suggested connections reaching beyond state-level officials, potentially into federal law enforcement or even higher. Do you think Amara should trust the federal government to investigate this case fairly? Comment number 1, if you believe some good federal agents could help her cause, or number 2, if you think the corruption goes all the way to the top. Like and subscribe to see how deep this conspiracy really goes. How could a small-town police department have such powerful protection? And what would happen when Amara discovered who was really pulling the strings behind Oak Ridge's system of injustice? Amara's team went completely dark as all of Oak Ridge mobilized to hunt them. State police checkpoints appeared on major roads. Local news broadcast descriptions of persons of interest in a domestic terrorism investigation, thinly veiled profiles of Amara and her allies. Cellular networks experienced technical difficulties as authorities implemented mobile surveillance systems designed to track specific devices. The team separated into pairs using pre-planned protocols for communication blackouts. Chen and Vasquez established a new digital operations center in an abandoned rail car outside town limits using specialized equipment to maintain secure communications while appearing electronically invisible. Amara and Tucker focused on protecting Jamal, whose secure medical facility now represented their greatest vulnerability. Their operational security had been compromised, suggesting either sophisticated surveillance or an inside source. "We need to assume they know about the backup locations," Amara told Tucker as they navigated back roads in a nondescript delivery van. "We've prepared for this contingency." Marcus Johnson became their first casualty. State police detained him as he left school, holding him incommunicado under juvenile terrorism statutes. His parents' frantic calls to attorneys went unanswered as no one could determine where he was being held. News of his detention spread through the community network, sending a clear message: anyone connected to Jamal or the investigation faced severe consequences. The intimidation escalated as officers conducted warrantless searches of homes belonging to protest organizers. Attorney Johnson's office suffered a mysterious fire that destroyed case files. Mrs. Jenkins, whose video had first exposed the shooting, found herself arrested on fabricated drug charges after police discovered narcotics during a traffic stop. With conventional legal avenues closing, Amara took the extraordinary step of contacting U.S. Attorney General Eleanor Phillips, directly bypassing standard protocols through a secure intelligence back channel established years earlier during a national security operation. What you're describing sounds like a criminal conspiracy involving multiple jurisdictions, Phillips acknowledged during their encrypted communication. But I need irrefutable evidence before authorizing federal intervention against local and state law enforcement. Amara provided access to the secure server containing all evidence-gathered financial records showing bribes, surveillance recordings of officers discussing evidence tampering, medical reports, documenting attempted murder of Jamal in the hospital, and communications linking local officials to extremist groups. Most damning was the unedited body cam footage showing officers discussing demographic targets immediately after shooting Jamal. Attorney General Phillips responded with cautious commitment. I'm assembling a special task force under direct supervision, complete communications blackout until we move. Trust no one outside your immediate circle. This warning proved prescient. Within hours, a federal judge with connections to Governor Wilson signed sealed warrants authorizing extraordinary measures against domestic terrorists threatening public safety. Legal cover for the increasingly illegal tactics employed against Amara and her supporters. Chen discovered these warrants through digital surveillance of court communications. They're using counterterrorism statutes to authorize detention without charges, he reported. Anyone connected to this investigation can be held indefinitely. The corruption extended into federal courtrooms. When Attorney Johnson filed emergency motions challenging Marcus's detention, Judge William Harmon dismissed them without hearing arguments citing national security concerns. Investigation revealed Harmon had received substantial campaign contributions from the same private prison corporations connected to Oak Ridge officials during his election campaign. Amara's CIA career officially ended with a terse email from Deputy Director Collins. Due to unauthorized use of agency resources and insubordination, your employment is terminated effective immediately. All clearances revoked. Surrender to authorities for debriefing. What the message didn't say was that Collins himself had close ties to Senator Robert Mitchell, who chaired the Intelligence Oversight Committee and maintained a vacation home in Oak Ridge. The connections between federal authorities and local corruption began forming a disturbing pattern. Jamal's health became an urgent concern again, as his specialized treatment required medical supplies that became increasingly difficult to obtain. Each resupply mission carried extreme risk of compromise. During one such operation, Vasquez nearly walked into a police ambush, escaping only through quick thinking and diversionary tactics. Amara faced the most difficult decision of her life: continue fighting from the shadows with dwindling resources or take the ultimate risk of going public with everything, including classified CIA operations, to generate enough public pressure to force federal intervention. Before she could decide, disaster struck. A coordinated raid targeted all suspected locations simultaneously. The medical facility housing Jamal came under assault by tactical units using flashbang grenades and battering rams. Only Tucker's foresight in establishing multiple evacuation routes allowed them to extract Jamal seconds before officers breached the main entrance. They're using military-grade tracking technology, Chen reported as they fled. This isn't local or even state resources. Someone's deployed federal-level assets against us. They regrouped at an abandoned factory that had been prepared months earlier as an absolute last resort. No electronic equipment, no connection to power or water grids, completely off any official record. As Jamal rested still, recovering from his injuries and the hasty evacuation, Amara took stock of their situation. Their evidence was secure on distributed servers, but their ability to present it through official channels had been systematically eliminated. Every institution that should protect citizens from abuse had been compromised or neutralized. "We have one card left to play," she told her team. "Full disclosure, everything we know about Oak Ridge, everything about the corruption network, and everything about how my CIA division has been monitoring domestic extremism for years." "That's classified at the highest levels," Chen reminded her. "It's treason." "No," Amara replied. "Treason is when government officials betray their oath to the Constitution. What they've done to Jamal, to this community, to the rule of law itself, that's the real treason." Through elaborate security measures, they made contact with Sophia Chen again. "I need to go public with everything," Amara explained. "Not just Oak Ridge, but the entire network, including federal connections." "Are you prepared for what that means?" The journalist understood the implications. "They'll try to discredit you, arrest you, maybe worse. But if you have the evidence, I'll make sure the world sees it." As they finalized plans for the most significant whistleblowing event since Snowden, Amara discovered the most disturbing aspect of the entire conspiracy. Analyzing patterns in the opposition's tactics and resources, she identified an operational signature she recognized from her intelligence career. "This isn't just corruption," she realized with growing horror. "Oak Ridge is a test case, a controlled experiment in how to implement systematic oppression while maintaining legal cover. Someone's developing a playbook for modern authoritarianism using this small town as their laboratory." The nationwide broadcast began without warning, simultaneously appearing on major networks, streaming platforms, and social media channels. Sophisticated penetration algorithms developed by Chen ensured maximum distribution before authorities could respond. Amara appeared on screen, her face calm but determined, seated beside Jamal, who had insisted on being present despite his weakened condition. "My name is Dr. Amara Wright. Until last week, I was Deputy Director of Special Activities Division at the CIA, overseeing counterterrorism and domestic threat assessment. I am speaking to you today because every institution designed to protect American citizens and uphold constitutional rights has been compromised in Oak Ridge, Missouri, and potentially beyond." For the next 20 minutes, she methodically presented evidence of systematic corruption. Financial records showing payments between officials, unedited videos of police discussing racial profiling strategies, medical reports documenting attempted murder of her son in hospital custody, and court documents revealing judicial complicity in covering up civil rights violations. Most damning was her revelation that Oak Ridge represented a deliberate experiment. "This isn't isolated corruption. Our investigation has uncovered evidence that Oak Ridge was selected as a test case for implementing systematic population control measures targeting minority communities. The techniques developed here were intended for nationwide deployment." As she spoke, the evidence appeared on screen. Internal communications referring to the Oak Ridge Protocol and discussing successful methodologies for demographic management that could be scaled to urban environments. Government agencies scrambled to contain the broadcast, but Chen's distribution system remained 3 steps ahead, constantly shifting to new channels as others were blocked. The impact was immediate and overwhelming. Within hours, protesters gathered in major cities nationwide. Congressional leaders from both parties called for emergency investigations. International allies expressed grave concerns about human rights violations. The carefully constructed narrative protecting Oak Ridge's power structure collapsed completely. Federal agencies found themselves divided, with some rushing to contain the damage while others moved to address the exposed corruption. The FBI dispatched its Civil Rights Division under direct oversight from loyal elements within the Justice Department. U.S. Marshals secured key evidence locations. Military police established perimeters around Oak Ridge Police Headquarters after reports that officers were destroying documents en masse. Chief Larson and D.A. Preston recognized the inevitable collapse and attempted to flee. Airport security cameras captured their arrival at a private airfield outside Columbia, boarding a chartered jet with hastily packed luggage. Federal agents intercepted the aircraft moments before takeoff, finding both men carrying fake passports and over $300,000 in cash. Their attempted flight became powerful visual evidence of consciousness of guilt. Mayor Richards, seeing former allies in handcuffs on national news, made a strategic calculation. He contacted federal prosecutors, directly offering complete cooperation in exchange for leniency. "I was just following directives from the state level," he claimed, providing emails and recorded conversations implicating Governor Wilson and several state officials in what he called population management initiatives. As federal authorities established control, the full network of corruption began unraveling. Officer Randall, abandoned by his superiors and facing multiple federal charges, offered comprehensive testimony about departmental practices. "We had monthly quotas for citations and arrests in minority neighborhoods," he revealed in sworn testimony. "Officers who met targets received bonuses through the Police Benevolent Fund. Those who questioned the policy were assigned to undesirable shifts or forced out." The most shocking revelations concerned connections to white nationalist organizations. Digital forensics uncovered communication between Chief Larson and leaders of extremist groups discussing Oak Ridge as a model community for implementing demographic stability measures, euphemisms for systematic harassment of minority residents. National attention focused on Jamal as he testified before a special congressional committee through sign language with Amara, interpreting his statement, "I always believed the police were supposed to protect everyone. That day I learned that to some officers my hands trying to communicate meant something threatening just because of my skin color. No one should fear being shot for trying to say, 'I can't hear you.'" His testimony broadcast nationally humanized the statistics and policy discussions showing the real human impact of systematic discrimination. Public opinion polls showed over 80% of Americans supporting comprehensive police reform after his appearance. Not everyone accepted the changing tide. Hardline elements within the Oak Ridge Police Department barricaded themselves inside headquarters, refusing to recognize federal authority. Armed officers established defensive positions, creating a tense standoff that threatened to escalate into violent confrontation. Simultaneously, armed militia groups from surrounding counties mobilized, responding to calls on extremist message boards to defend local sovereignty against federal overreach. The situation teetered on the brink of armed conflict. Amara, reinstated as a special advisor to the Justice Department task force, recognized the volatility. "They want a martyr narrative," she explained to federal commanders. "A violent confrontation feeds their recruitment and justifies their worldview. We need to deny them that opportunity." Working with psychological operations specialists, she developed an alternative approach, systematic isolation rather than direct confrontation. Utilities to the police headquarters were cut. Communication jammers prevented coordination with outside supporters. Drone surveillance monitored all movements, while a perimeter maintained sufficient distance to avoid provocation. After 36 hours without water, electricity, or communication, internal divisions emerged among the barricaded officers. Junior officers, realizing the futility of their position, began surrendering individually. By the third day, only a hardcore group around Acting Chief Williamson remained. Their surrender came not through tactical assault, but through the arrival of their own families, spouses, children, and parents, who pleaded with them to end the standoff peacefully. As federal control solidified, Amara finally confronted the true mastermind behind Oak Ridge's system. Senator Walter Harrison, chairman of the Senate Intelligence Committee, had personally overseen the Oak Ridge Initiative through classified funding channels and policy directives. His ideology of demographic preservation had found expression through systematized oppression disguised as law enforcement. When federal agents arrived at his Washington office with warrants, he greeted them with shocking composure. "You have no idea what you're dismantling," he told them. Some communities aren't meant to integrate. Oak Ridge was providing valuable data on maintaining traditional demographic balance through legal means. You've set that research back by years. His recorded statement, later played at his bail hearing, revealed the clinical calculation behind what had appeared as simple racism. Oak Ridge hadn't suffered from isolated corruption. It had been deliberately transformed into a laboratory for testing systematic oppression techniques. The revelation forced America to confront uncomfortable truths about how easily constitutional protections could be subverted through coordinated action across multiple institutions. As indictments mounted and investigations expanded to other communities with similar patterns, Amara faced her own moral reckoning. Exposing classified operations, even to prevent grave injustice, violated laws she had sworn to uphold. The evidence she revealed had saved Jamal and potentially countless others from systematic abuse, but legal consequences remained inevitable. "Some prices are worth paying," she told Jamal as they watched news coverage of reforms being implemented nationwide. "Justice matters more than any oath to institutions that lost their way." The federal courthouse in Washington, D.C. stood as a monument to American justice, its grand columns and imposing facade projecting the permanence of law above individual power. Inside Courtroom 3, that ideal faced its greatest test as Senator Walter Harrison took the stand in his own defense. The gallery overflowed with journalists, civil rights leaders, and citizens drawn by the historic significance of a sitting senator facing charges of conspiracy against constitutional rights. Harrison maintained his composure as federal prosecutors presented evidence of his role creating the Oak Ridge Protocol, a systematic approach to driving minority populations from targeted communities through coordinated harassment, selective enforcement, and institutional intimidation. "What you call harassment, I call community preservation." Harrison testified, his voice steady. "Some neighborhoods, some towns, have historical demographic patterns worth maintaining. We merely developed legal frameworks to preserve those patterns." The most damning evidence came from Harrison's own secured server detailed reports analyzing the effectiveness of different oppression techniques, statistical models projecting demographic outcomes from various enforcement strategies, and proposed legislation to expand the program nationwide under the innocuous title Community Stability Initiative. Jamal's testimony provided the human counterpoint to Harrison's clinical calculations. Using sign language interpreted by a court-certified translator rather than his mother, he described not just the shooting, but the years of subtle discrimination that preceded it. "Every day was a series of small injustices," his hands expressed. "Teachers who wouldn't face me when speaking, store owners who followed me through aisles, police cars that slowed down whenever I walked alone. The bullets were just the final, most honest expression of a system that never saw me as fully human." His testimony left many in tears and others in righteous anger. Most powerful was his response when Harrison's attorney suggested he had misinterpreted normal police procedure due to his disability. Jamal's hands moved with deliberate precision. "My ears don't work, but my eyes see everything. I watched Officer Holloway recognize me before he fired. I saw the satisfaction in his expression when I fell." That wasn't procedure. That was purpose. As the trial proceeded, Amara faced her own legal battle. Charged with multiple violations of espionage statutes for revealing classified operations, she had declined a presidential pardon, insisting that her actions be judged on their merits rather than through political calculation. "I won't accept that exposing unconstitutional activities should require a pardon," she explained to Jamal. "That implies such exposure was wrong in the first place." Her trial became a national referendum on whistleblower protections and the limits of classification systems. Constitutional scholars debated whether revealing illegal government activities could itself be illegal. Civil libertarians argued that classification systems had expanded far beyond their legitimate scope, becoming tools to hide misconduct rather than protect genuine national security interests. The President established an independent commission to review classification procedures, acknowledging that protecting genuine secrets and protecting public officials from accountability are entirely different purposes. In Oak Ridge itself, profound transformation began. With federal oversight, the police department was completely restructured. New hiring practices emphasized community connection and de-escalation skills. Required training now included extensive education on interacting with disabled individuals, with Jamal's case as a central study. Schools implemented comprehensive interpreter services and communication resources for deaf students. Most significantly, a civilian oversight board with genuine investigative authority now reviewed all use of force incidents. These changes spread nationally as the Justice in Silence Act moved through Congress, mandating similar reforms for departments nationwide. The legislation required police training on interacting with deaf individuals, established strict body cam requirements, and created independent review mechanisms for use of force incidents involving minorities or disabled persons. The jury in Harrison's trial deliberated for just 7 hours before returning guilty verdicts on all counts. The judge, a conservative appointee with a law and order reputation, delivered a scathing assessment before sentencing. You betrayed not just your oath of office, but the fundamental promise of equal justice that defines American democracy. You weaponized the very institutions designed to protect constitutional rights to instead systematically violate them. There can be no greater betrayal of public trust. Harrison received 40 years without possibility of parole. In Amara's case, the jury similarly deliberated briefly before acquitting her of all charges, accepting her necessity defense that exposing unconstitutional actions served rather than harmed national security interests. The verdict established important precedent protecting future whistleblowers who revealed genuine abuses of power. With legal battles concluded, Amara and Jamal established the right foundation for justice and accessibility dedicated to representing victims of discrimination and ensuring communication access for deaf individuals in institutional settings. The Foundation's first initiative provided free legal representation to families affected by the Oak Ridge system, helping them receive compensation and clear unjust criminal records. Jamal, now fully recovered physically, though bearing emotional scars that would never completely heal, announced his intention to become a civil rights attorney specializing in cases involving deaf individuals. His application to Harvard Law School included a personal statement delivered in sign language that went viral when the school shared it online with his permission. "My hands were once seen as threatening enough to justify shooting me," he signed. "Now they will speak the language of justice in courtrooms across America." At the 1-year anniversary of the shooting, Amara and Jamal returned to the corner of Elm and Washington, where everything had begun. Community members gathered for the dedication of a memorial, not a statue or monument, but a practical installation, an emergency communication system with video capability, allowing deaf individuals to connect with emergency services through sign language. Similar systems were being installed nationwide. Amara watched her son address the gathering in fluid, powerful signs translated for hearing attendees. His final statement captured the complexity of their journey. Justice isn't guaranteed by laws or institutions. Those can be corrupted. Justice lives in the courage of individuals willing to stand against powerful systems, to risk everything for truth. My mother taught me that some fights choose you. When they do, the only failure is refusing to stand. As mother and son walked away from the ceremony, a reporter asked Amara if she had any regrets given the personal cost she'd paid. She considered the question carefully before answering. Systems of oppression never truly die. They evolve, finding new disguises and new targets. The price of justice isn't paid once but continuously. So no, I have no regrets. This battle may be won, but the war for equal justice continues. We must remain vigilant. Jamal signed a simple addition, and we must remain loud even in silence. What would you do if faced with systematic injustice in your community? Would you have the courage to stand against corruption like Amara did, even at great personal cost? Comment below with your thoughts, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this story if it moved you. Remember that justice requires not just awareness, but action. Thank you for witnessing this journey from injustice to transformation. May it inspire your own stand against discrimination wherever you encounter it. The story of Jamal and Amara Wright teaches us that systemic injustice thrives in silence and secrecy. When institutions meant to protect citizens become corrupted, the true defenders of justice are often ordinary people with extraordinary courage. Amara's journey shows that fighting oppression requires both strategic thinking and moral conviction, knowing when to work within systems and when those systems themselves have become the problem. Jamal's experience reminds us that discrimination affects real human beings with dreams, talents, and potential that society loses when prejudice prevails. The most powerful lesson is that no corruption network, regardless of its reach or resources, can withstand the light of truth when enough brave individuals refuse to be silenced. True change requires more than exposing injustice. It demands rebuilding institutions with transparency, accountability, and equal protection at their core. Perhaps most importantly, this story teaches us that justice is not a destination, but a continuous journey requiring vigilance and courage from each generation. When we witness injustice, remaining neutral is not an option. Our silence becomes complicity, while our voice becomes power. Has a story like this ever made you question how you would respond in the face of injustice? Would you have the courage to stand up like Amara, even when powerful systems push back? Or would you be like Marcus, supporting from the sidelines, but still making a crucial difference? Comment below with what part of this story resonated most with you. If you believe everyone deserves equal justice, regardless of race, ability, or background, hit that like button to spread this message. Subscribe to hear more powerful stories of ordinary people standing against extraordinary oppression. And please share this video with someone who needs to understand how discrimination still shapes American lives today. Remember, as Jamal signed at the memorial, justice requires us to remain loud even in silence. Thank you for bearing witness to this story. May it inspire you to recognize and confront injustice in your own community.